Imagine you are a tech millionaire and have hot wife and child, but you meet a beautiful Bartendress and after 5 minutes of meeting you clap her. Chris Decker, a young hotshot loaded with cash, is on a video call with his drop-dead gorgeous wife, Jamie. But hold up, it's not all hearts and flowers, they're hashing out their divorce papers. Chris, though, starts feeling a pang of regret, wondering if he should have put up a better fight for their family. Jamie, cool as a cucumber, tells him to move on. Later, Jamie's tucking in their daughter, Willow, who's pouring her heart out about missing her old man. All Jamie can do is reassure her with words of love for Chris. Meanwhile, Chris is out braving the stormy night, seeking solace in the ice cream aisle of a local store. There, he locks eyes with Sky, a total knockout. She's clearly having a rough one, and Chris, being the stand-up guy he is, suggests the perfect wine to take the edge off. They swap names, there's a spark, and just like that, she disappears into the night, leaving Chris to mull over their electric encounter. Outside the convenience store, Chris spots Sky again, stranded because her Uber flaked on her. Being the good guy he is, he offers her a lift to her place, but Sky spills that she's had a blowout with her roommate, and is not down to spend the night there. So, Chris suggests his pad instead. Little does Chris know, Ronald, the nosy neighbor, is peeping through his curtains, checking out every move Chris makes with Sky. Once they're at Chris's dope place, Sky is blown away. She figures it's his folks' spot, but Chris drops the bomb, it's all his. Turns out, he's made bank from his days in the cybersecurity game. Sky, though, used to model but ditched the glam for a simpler life in the countryside. As the night gets deeper, they chill by the fire, and the chemistry between them is off the charts. As the night deepens, they cozy up by the fire, and sparks fly, big time. Sky's euphoria echo through the room as Chris rocks her world, leaving Ronald to wonder what's up with his neighbor's wild night. The next morning, Chris wakes up to an empty bed, while Sky heads back to her apartment. Ronald, the neighborhood busybody, can't help but make a snide comment about her walk of shame, hinting at what went down the night before. When Sky gets home, her roommate Lisa is furious. She didn't come back all night and now faces a grilling from Lisa about her disappearing act. But Sky is not in the mood for drama. She brushes Lisa off and shuts herself in her room, ignoring Lisa's pleas to talk. Meanwhile, Chris is lost in memories of his daughter Willow, hearing her laughter echoing in his mind. Feeling the weight of loneliness, he hits up a bar for a drink, where he's surprised to find Sky behind the counter. They chat, but Chris drops a bombshell. He's only seeing her because his ex-wife wants him to move on, leaving Sky feeling blindsided. Their convo continues long after Sky's shift ends, and she opens up about her past, revealing she grew up in foster care and feels like damaged goods. Chris, in turn, shares his own struggles, explaining how his obsession with security drove a wedge between him and his ex. Just when things seem to be connecting, chaos erupts as Chris catches a guy named Kurju trying to swipe his ride. Chris tries to intervene, but it all goes south when Kurju busts his leg with a crowbar and bolts. After the crime, Chris finds himself in a wheelchair with a busted leg, and Sky swoops in to take him home the next day. Struggling to get comfy on the couch without his private nurse around, Sky steps up and offers to look after him. When Chris playfully asks about her qualifications, she leans in close, whispering suggestively and planting a steamy kiss on him. Chris, unable to resist, agrees to let her take care of him and ditches his nurse appointment. He even trusts her with his home security codes while she heads back to grab her stuff. Back at Sky's apartment, Lisa anxiously waits for her return, with Ronald the nosy neighbor lurking nearby. He remarks on how well Lisa was doing before Sky entered the scene, but Lisa shuts him down, calling him jealous. When Sky rolls up, she smirks at Ronald's nosiness before heading inside to pack. Lisa's emotions boil over when Sky walks in, demanding answers. But instead of explaining, Sky takes a different approach, coaxing Lisa to sit with her on the bed and sharing a tender kiss to soothe her worries. Meanwhile, back at Chris's place, Sky's sweet voice wakes him from his slumber, already working her magic on him. Unable to resist her allure, Chris leans in for more kisses, and they spend the night together, making the most of their time. As they lie together in bed, Chris pours his heart out, confessing his love for Sky, but she brushes it off, attributing it to the meds he's on. Undeterred, Chris asks if she'd feel the same once he's off the meds, only for Sky to drop a bombshell. She already loves him too. Ronald's pounding on Lisa's door like he's auditioning for a spot in a heavy metal band, demanding rent like his life depends on it. But when silence greets him instead of cash, he channels his inner Hulk and smashes the door open. What he finds inside is straight out of a horror flick. Lisa, stone cold dead, wrists slit, chilling in a blood-filled bathtub. Meanwhile, Sky's playing tech whiz with the face scanner while Chris is just starting to peel open his eyelids. Detective Lane's playing hardball with Ronald, grilling him like a steak on a hot grill about Lisa's untimely demise. He's smelling foul play, suspecting murder, but Ronald's spinning a different story. He thinks Lisa offed herself after Sky. Her supposed flame left her in a funk. Lane's not buying it, though, especially when he can't track down this mysterious Sky in their database. Their powwow gets rudely interrupted by the paparazzi, and Lane's about as pleased as a porcupine in a balloon factory when Ronald spills the apartment's secrets to the press. Meanwhile, Jamie's dialing up Chris on video chat, ready to chat divorce papers, but Chris ain't having it. He blames his bum leg, showing off his injury, so Jamie suggests a Willow visit to lift his spirits. Getting a surprise when she hears about the private nurse, she knows Chris's trust issues better than she knows her own birthday. Back at Chris's crib, curiosity gets the best of him, and he goes on a stealth mission, snooping through Sky's stuff while she's scrubbing up. Suddenly, he strikes gold, a pic of Sky and Lisa setting off alarm bells. But before he can concoct an excuse, Sky catches him red-handed. Instead of blowing up, she throws him a curveball, her towel, and they end up hitting the sheets in a frenzy, giving a hard beating to Chris Meatstick. As night falls, Sky slips into Willow's old room, humming a soothing tune before drifting off to sleep. The next morning, Chris wakes up in a panic, frantically searching for his missing phone. He hobbles around the house on his crutches, trying to check his tablet, but it's as dead as a doornail. Then, he spots the TV flashing news about Lisa's death with the headline, "Murder or Suicide." Chris recognizes her from Sky's photo, but his attention is diverted when Sky walks in, carrying breakfast. As Chris mentions the news, suggesting she call the cops, Sky drops a bombshell. She's the one who killed Lisa, casually remarking on the taste of the food. She admits to the murder. Chris is stunned, demanding answers. Sky explains her twisted plan, confessing to spying on him from Lisa's apartment for months to gain his trust. Chris is devastated, telling Sky to leave, but she remains unmoved, flashing a sinister smile as she locks him inside using his own phone. Frustrated and desperate, Chris demands his phone back, but Sky has other ideas. She shocks him with a taser, sending him crashing to the floor. Unable to defend himself with his injured leg, Chris is at Sky's mercy as she strikes again, knocking him out cold. Back at the apartment, Ronald, cleaning up Lisa's room, discovers the telescope Sky used to spy on Chris. Intrigued, he aims it at neighboring houses, his curiosity ignited. His eyes widen at the sight of a neighbor sunbathing, prompting him to grab a chair for a closer look. Meanwhile, Sky binds Chris to a wheelchair, demanding his security codes with a chilling determination. When Chris refuses, Sky's demeanor darkens. She kicks him to the floor and subjects him to the agony of an electric drill. During Ronald's voyeuristic exploration, he adjusts the telescope and inadvertently catches Sky dressing after her interrogation of Chris. Unaware of Ronald's gaze, Sky proceeds with her sinister activities. As Sky revels in her triumph, she transfers Chris's funds into her account, a cruel smile playing on her lips. Morning arrives, shedding light on the apartment's grim reality. Chris writhes in pain as Sky prepares him for a meeting with bankers, her intentions clear. Despite Chris's resistance, Sky remains resolute in her plan to seize his assets. Desperate to stop her, Chris struggles against his restraints, but Sky retaliates, stabbing him with scissors. Threatening his loved ones, she proceeds to dismantle his security measures and document his possessions. With ruthless efficiency, Sky takes control, leaving Chris helpless and at her mercy as she continues her nefarious scheme. As people start to arrive, Chris's hopes rise, only to be dashed when Kurju appears. She gives him a rundown of the items they'll be selling from his possessions. Meanwhile, Ronald lurks in his car while Sky exits the house, leaving Chris gagged with duct tape, rendering his cries for help useless. Thinking it's safe, Ronald breaks into Chris's home, finding him wounded and bound to his wheelchair. At the same time, Sky spots Ronald on the security camera through Chris's phone. Ronald criticizes Chris for his wealth before removing the duct tape from his mouth. Chris pleads for him to call the cops, but Ronald prioritizes his own gain, demanding something valuable in return. Chris offers his Picasso painting, but Ronald drops a bombshell. He doesn't own a phone due to health concerns. When Sky arrives, Ronald brandishes a knife, threatening her before fleeing upstairs with the painting. Unfazed, Sky ominously smiles at Chris through the house monitor as she ascends with a samurai blade. She gleefully monitors Ronald's movements through Chris's phone, allowing Chris to break free. He speeds off on a snowmobile, accompanied by Ronald's screams of agony. However, Chris's escape is short-lived as he falls on the road, narrowly avoiding a collision with Sebastian's car. Sebastian helps the paranoid Chris into his car, reassuring him that no one is following them. Sebastian taps the number into his phone and puts it on speaker, connecting with the police before handing the phone to Chris, urging him to explain the situation. But as the car pulls up to their destination, Chris is taken aback to find himself back at his own house. Before he can react, Sebastian knocks him out cold. When Chris regains consciousness, he's greeted by a bloodied Sky. Together, they drag him back inside, Sebastian chuckling at Chris's foolish hope of rescue. Left alone with Sebastian, Chris learns the unsettling truth: Sebastian is Sky's stepfather and their partner in crime. With a chilling calmness, Sebastian boasts about their scheme to target wealthy individuals like Chris. He tries to rationalize their actions, suggesting that Chris doesn't deserve his wealth because he didn't earn it honestly. But Chris isn't buying into Sebastian's twisted logic. He sees through the facade, refusing to let Sebastian paint them as some sort of modern-day Robin Hoods. Chris confronts Sebastian, asserting that they're nothing but common criminals, devoid of any moral high ground. That night, Chris's heart shattered into even smaller pieces as he listened to the jarring sounds of Sky and Sebastian's passionate encounters echoing through the house. Later, Sky approached Chris, attempting to justify her actions with cryptic phrases about feeding the wolf, much to his disgust. Despite her pretense of pity and confessions of missing their life together, Chris saw through her facade, questioning the authenticity of her emotions and even her true identity. In a moment of vulnerability, Chris poured out his love for Sky, expressing his willingness to give her everything he had. However, his heartfelt confession was met with accusations of deceit, leaving Chris feeling even more betrayed. Sky, driven by her own agenda, revealed her knowledge of Chris's hidden fortune and coerced him into compliance by threatening to access it through his thumbprint. In a horrifying turn of events, they mutilated Chris's thumb, silencing his screams of agony as the night came to a chilling end. As promised, Jamie arrived at Chris's house to drop off Willow, only to be greeted by a scene of chaos and horror. Concerned for her daughter's safety, Jamie demanded answers from Sky, who remained disturbingly calm amidst the turmoil. Tensions rose further when Sebastian appeared, adding to the sense of unease. Locked in a room with an injured Chris, Jamie and Willow, the atmosphere was heavy with fear and uncertainty. Tears flowed as Chris reunited with his daughter, his emotions overwhelming him in the presence of his loved ones amidst the darkness of the night. As Sebastian cleverly rigs Chris's severed thumb to his own finger to access Mr. Millionaire's leftover cash, they hit the road. Along the ride, Sebastian notices Sky acting sketchy, but she shrugs it off, telling him to keep his eyes on the prize. Meanwhile, back at the house, Jamie and Willow cook up a plan to break free using the vents. At the bank, they run into a vault officer who offers a handshake. Surprisingly, Sebastian's thumb trick does the job, getting them in. Back home, Jamie manages to pop the vent, letting Willow wiggle out to safety. Chris then drops a bomb on Jamie, revealing his bearer bonds were the real target of the heist, leaving her speechless. Sebastian and Sky, fuming after reading Jamie's letter, speed back home. On the surveillance feed, they catch Willow's escape. Inside, as they search for Jamie, Chris pops up and catches Sebastian off guard. A brawl breaks out, and as Sky aims a gun at Chris, demanding Jamie's whereabouts, things get tense. In the confusion, Sky accidentally aims at Sebastian, shooting him dead. Chris, in agony, watches as Sebastian crumples, adding a new layer of chaos. The gunshot echoes through the house, ramping up the tension. With Sebastian out of the picture, the dynamics shift dramatically. Chris seizes the moment, lunging at Sky to disarm her, but Sky proves to be a tough nut to crack, dodging his moves effortlessly. As the fight heats up, Chris grabs whatever he can, ready to defend himself against Sky's relentless assault. The fate of everyone hangs in the balance, each second ticking by, loaded with danger and uncertainty. Despite his shock, Chris seizes the moment, driving the weapon into Sky's shoulder before snatching his phone and slipping away. Sky, undeterred, wrenches out the weapon, her grin unyielding despite the pain, and resumes her relentless pursuit. Utilizing his phone, Chris lures her with blaring music and plunging the house into darkness, all the while tracking her movements. As Sky prowls through the house, Jamie and Willow huddle in fear. Sky taunts Chris and fires erratically at sounds, while Chris attempts to ambush her, only to find himself stabbed in the chest. Before Sky can land the final blow, Jamie intervenes, grappling with her. In the ensuing chaos, Chris manages to land a blow on Sky's leg, momentarily immobilizing her. However, she remains a looming threat. Unexpectedly, Willow springs into action, firing the gun and incapacitating Skye. Stunned but relieved, Jamie rushes to embrace her daughter, grateful that the danger has abated. As Skye's life slips away, she reaches out to Chris, her voice weak but urgent. Sirens blare in the distance, signaling Jamie's hasty departure with Willow. Chris, on the brink of escape, hesitates as Skye's final words hang in the air. Margaret, she murmurs, a flicker of truth in her fading breath, leaving Chris stunned by the unexpected revelation. And that's where this video ends. Watch the next one and take care.